Hello, a cháirde Jimmer Taishif, Tá Sulagum Gushif Likamoy, Agus Gushif Gobra, Mihal here. Welcome to our Easter revision course for paper one. Our Easter revision course taken a little bit after Easter, but we decided that you kind of needed a break after the orals and all the work that you've been doing. And you worked so hard for the orals, super hard. I'm incredibly proud of all the work and all the feedback that we've gotten in about the orals as well. It sounds like he's absolutely killed it, which is amazing. Incredibly proud. So we decided to give you a break last week and let you focus on the lesser subjects like maths and English and chemistry and biology and all those. And we decided then to run the actual the languages then the weekend after it. So this is why you're here on a Saturday. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at the essay. Now, I know you're going to go straight in, what essays should I do? And here are my essays, are these okay? I know you've got all those questions wanted to ask me, but I'm just going to ask you to hold off on them for a couple of minutes, right? I will get to your essays and what are you doing and if I think they're good selections and is the scope broad enough. Just park that up for a couple of minutes, right? Just put that worry that you have about the essays and how many essays you're doing and is it enough? Just put that to the side for a couple of minutes because the first part of today's class, I want to show you why pretty much any essay that you're learning is a good essay. I want to show you that any essay that you're studying at the moment can be applied to an awful lot of titles. So today's class is, for the first part of it, it's more so, I'm going to call it a cheat because that's exactly what it is. I'm going to show you how to kind of cheat the system when it comes to essays. I'm going to show you how to play the system and I'm going to show you how to get around it. I'm going to show you, Killian, how are you getting on? Good morning to you too. I hope you're well. I'm going to show you how you can actually just play the system a little bit when it comes to doing the Irish essays itself, right? So I know you have an awful lot of worries about the essays. I want you to relax for a second and I just want you to take a breather and I just want you to know it'll be fine, right? I'm going to show you an awful lot of tricks in today's class and how to kind of use the essay and manipulate the essay. So by the end of today's class, you'll actually kind of feel that maybe the essay is not as bad as I thought it was. Maybe the essay is not as much stress as I'm putting into it. And honestly, the essay is it's one of my favorite things to do because I can really teach you cheats when it comes to the actual essay and how to play the system itself. Right, so before we get started, I just want to show you what's up on the plan for this week. So we've about 4 weeks now left until the leadings are 4 and a little bit. We had 5th week last week. Now, I'm revising with you right up until the very end of the exams. Mostly other grinds will probably finish up around mid-May, maybe even the start of May. And then that's it, and you've a month to study. I'm going to stay with you right up until the actual exams themselves. So I've put in like a 5-week plan. So we're coming into another week here now, right? Monday at 7 o'clock on the 5th. This Monday I'm going to revise and do a masterclass with those students who are studying a Hignall Teacher. And I want to show you deferred papers. I want to show you mock papers. But more interestingly, I want to show you the exam papers from a couple of years ago when the new course came in. They gave us this bunch of exam papers, of sample papers, SEC sample papers, and they were like gold dust. And I still have my copy because I love Irish. I'm going to show you all those questions in May 5th for a Hignall Teacher and what they have asked and what we wanted students to answer. On May 12th, on Monday, May 12th, then I'm going to go for GAFA. So those of you who are studying GAFA, I'm going to do the exact same. I want to show you the deferred papers and the past papers, but I want to show you those SEC sample papers as well, what they can ask and what I think we need to focus on when it comes to GAFA. After that, for the 19th and May 26th, we're back to on Trial then. We'll do the same thing. We'll revise a couple of topics, couple of questions, things I think that they should ask this year. I'd like to see them asked this year, things they haven't asked us in a while. So that's the 19th and the 26th. So that's from 7 until 8:30 itself. Now, Tuesday is really, really important. Tuesday is a day that's actually getting an awful lot of great feedback from you. We're doing the listening. We're doing 6:45 every Tuesday. We do the listening and you answer the questions and I'll give you the responses. And the thing is, you get to ask me, Michal, is this correct? And how much do I get if I spelled it this way, but I spelled it this way? Do you think I'll get marks for it? You get to actually ask me in real time, how many marks am I going to get? But the thing is, while you're doing the listening for me and asking me questions, I'm listening to the listening exam and I'm picking out kind of phrases I think you need to know. And material that they haven't asked or vocab they haven't asked in a while. I'm giving you all those as well at the end of it. So it's a really good thing to get a handle on. Wednesdays, every Wednesday, we're going to go for technology revision and we're going to go for education revision as well. Technology is going to be every Wednesday at 3:30 and the education is going to be every Wednesday from 5:30 right up until the exams. So we're taking like a paragraph a week to revise on technology and a paragraph a week to revise on education, which means we'll have 5 paragraphs on 2 essays done in a couple of weeks. So we're really doing really, really well with the essay. Thursdays, we're going for our literature, the poems and the stories. Now, last Thursday, we looked at likely questions for McGross, things that they haven't really asked us in a while. We did that last week on on McGraw. Now this Thursday, I'm going to go for Oisín. Now, I know Oisín is not your favourite, Oisín na Dír na Nóg, I know, but I think Oisín is the one to watch out for. And that's why on Sunday, that's what I'm going to be revising with you. So tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, I'm going to do paper 2 with you. I want to take you through Spalpín Fánach and why it's really important this year. I want to take you through Oisín and why I think you need to focus on Oisín. Everybody knows that you're all hoping for Harlamabach and Kulskara. Everybody knows it. Everyone knows that that's the two that you're banking on. So much so, someone during the week told me, Michal, we're just doing Harlamabach in school because the teacher said that's all we need to do. It's a dead cert to come up. I don't think so. I think either Harlamabach or Oisín will come up. I think they'll put Caucamillish up, if I was to be honest. I think they'll repeat Caucamillish. And I think then they'll either put Oisín or Harlamabach up, which means I need you to do the two of these. Now, I know for a fact, you've been chatting to me, you know Harlamabach inside out and back to front. Brilliant. Deadly, right? I think we need to pay particular attention to Oisín this year. So that's what I'm going to do with you tomorrow. I want to show you kind of how to do the Oisín question and why Oisín's not as bad as you think as well. You're doing way too much for the Oisín question, and I want to just peel it back a little bit. And then I'm going to show you the reading comprehensions. I'm going to show you how to do the reading comprehension, question 6A, question 6B. So all of that's going to be on in tomorrow's class as well. So that's the plan for us for the next 4 or 5 weeks when it comes to studying. And remember, I'm going to stay up right up until the very end with you. I won't be going away. You have my email. We'll meet literally every night of the week. I think Saturdays and Sundays are the only days that we're not actually kind of doing something here. But I just a quick question coming in there from Kate. The listening class is a lifesaver. Delighted you love it, Kate. That's great. Can you assign a listening test for us to do it as a test and then we correct it in class? I can, yeah, that's no bother. A listening test for us to do as a test and then we correct it. Yeah, 100%. So I'm working on 2022 at the moment. I might give you another one this week, maybe, Kate, actually, just to go through it from start to finish. That's pretty much what I can get. I'll give you a hand at that. That's no bother. Ava, quick question coming in there about poems and stories. Ava, I think at this point, I think 3 poems and 3 stories is kind of where you need to go with these, but I'll talk more about that in tomorrow's class, right? So tomorrow for paper 2, that's where we're going to talk about the poems and we're going to talk about the stories, but I definitely think 3 poems and 3 stories would be the best. In 3 poems, I would go for would be Kulskara, Spalpín, and Mugrasa. They're the 3 that I would go for. And then when it comes to the stories, I would definitely go for Oisín, Harlamabach, and Caucamillish. They'd be my top 3. So 3 poems and 3 stories themselves would be the best ones to go for. Right, let's get you started on the material for today. So we're going to go and we're going to have a look at the actual essay. I want to talk to you about the essay. Now, your notes for today, they're on the newsfeed. They're also in the downloadable section. So if you pop up to the downloadable notes and go all the way down, you can get your notes in the Easter revision notes, or they're also on the newsfeed for you as well, just to make things a little bit easier for you on a Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. So if you just pop over newsfeed, download the notes, here's what you're going to have. Can I get you to go to page 23? We're going to talk about the essay and why I think you're putting a bit too much emphasis on the essay and why you're kind of stressing out about the essay a little bit, right? So let's have a look at this for a second. The layout of the questions. There are 9 questions in total on the day of the exam. So I'm just going to get you to highlight that for me, right? So on the day, they're giving you 9 different questions over 3 different sections, right? You just have to answer 1, which is fantastic. Now, these 3 sections have a wide range of different writing styles to suit every student in the country. You can write an essay or a news article, you can write a fictional story, or you can do a debate or a speech. So here's how our breakdown, here's what it looks like. 99.9% of the country will end up doing A, which is the essay. It's an essay or it's a news article. And they're going to give you 5 essay titles on the day for those as well. So you can either pick 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a nice kind of scope. Underneath that, then you have the scale. Now, a couple of you were telling me during the week, my teacher says we're doing a scale because I just have to learn off 1 story and it'll fit everything that comes up. We know that's what's happening. We know that's what's happening in the exams. That's teachers are given 1 story and they're just manipulating it to fit the title, like Broad, Mishnach and all that. The thing is, it is very hard to get marks, top marks in the scale because it's about creative writing. So if you're naturally a gifted writer or a creative writer, then the story is for you. That's why it's there. But if you're not a creative writer, if you're not able to write a short story, if you're not able to write a creative piece of fiction, I wouldn't go near the scale. So being honest, and I've never, ever, ever taught that. I wouldn't do it. It's very hard to get the marks in it, especially if you're going for your H1s, H2s, and H3s. Now, underneath this then, right, we have the debate or the speech, and I'll talk to you a little bit about the differences between these in a couple of seconds. I think we should all put plan B beside that. I'm going to show you why in a second. I was talking to a student there last night by email, and they're asking me saying, I'm not doing the debate in school. I was like, you should be doing the debate. The debate is essentially an essay, just with a different introduction. That's all it is. So I want us all to look at the debate, and we're also going to look at the speech. So we get one debate and one speech. Now here's the good news. If you take my advice, you will have 5 options here, and then you'll have 2 down there. So on the day of the exam, you are going to have a choice of 7 essay titles, which is fantastic, right? That's why I need us to look at the debate and the speech. Now let's have a look at the topics coming up. You're asking me over the past couple of weeks, Michal, I'm getting this topic done. Is it okay? I'm getting this topic done. Here are my 5 essays. What do I think about that? It's about how you're going to use the essay. It's about what you have and how you're going to manipulate it to fit the topic. So there are reoccurring topics on this. So you'll see stuff coming up like homelessness and healthcare and crime and the environment, the education system, drugs, sport, music. The topics keep coming up over and over and over and over again. So there is good news. I would not learn every essay on the course, right? Learning every essay on the course is the wrong thing to do. I want to show you how you can use maybe 4 core essays and spread them around to fit all of the titles that are going to come up. And that's what we're going to look at in the first part of the class. So some years can throw up specific questions, like the Easter Rising, that came up in 2016. That surprised nobody. In 2016, that they asked about Irish and the commemoration in 1916. So we had that prepared already. So some years have specific things. Other than that, it's fairly generic that the questions keep coming up and they keep changing. So honestly, the course for the essay is one of my favorite things to teach because it allows us to cheat the system and it allows us to bag a handy 16.6% if we play our cards right, if we cheat and we cheat well when it comes to actually learning off the material itself. So let's go to the next page and let's have a look. Very, very important. You need to know your marking scheme and you need to know your penalties. It is possible to get 0% in an essay. You could write 3 or 4 A4 pages and you might get it back in September and you get 0% and you're like, why do I only get 0%? It's because you're not looking at the title correctly. So let's have a look at the marking scheme first of all, right? They're giving you 100 marks or 16.6% overall for your leading cert here, right? And it's made up of 3 sections and we need to look at these 3 sections. Number 1 is the style. Can I get you to highlight style? Style means it has to be written in reflection of the question. Write an essay like an essay, write a debate like a debate, write a speech like a speech, and you're going to get 5 marks straight off the bat, 5%. So 5% for writing an essay like an essay. That's brilliant. That's fantastic. If you're looking to pass the essay, all you need is another 35%. So that 5 marks is pretty much, it's a given to pretty much 99.9% of the students around the country. It's there to give you a little bump. It's there just to give you a little bit of a foot onto the ladder. Now, after this, we're going to have to look at the subject. Can I get you to put an NB beside the subject? What does the subject mean? The subject means you have to stick close to the question. Don't waffle. If we ask you about the education system, you stay on track with the education system. And the more you stay on track with the education system, the higher up them marks are going to go. I'm going to give you the full 15 out of 15. If I ask you about the environment and you write me an essay on the environment, you're going to get your 15 out of 15. But if I give you an essay on the environment and you start to tell me about a homeless man who lives in Stephen's Green and he's living out in the environment and he's on the streets because XYZ and social problems XYZ, then that 15 is going to drop. So if we give you a title on the environment, write about the environment. If we give you the education system, write about the education system. If we give you Irish language and culture, write about Irish language and culture. And you'll get your full 15 out of 15. The last one we have here then is the Irish for 80 marks, 80%. Now 80% of this here is for your richness of Irish, fancy Irish, nice Irish. And one of the things, if you've been with me over the past couple of months on the grinds, the rock I am willing to perish on, your Irish should not be long-winded. It should not be complicated. It should not have rolling sentences that go on and on and on and on and on. Irish can be short and snappy, but have different vocab to the rest of your class. Irish can be very, very different, something that's unique and sets you apart, not long, stupid, padded out sentences. But if you can keep your sentences quite short and simple, but put stuff that's in that a little bit unique and put stuff in that sentence that's a little bit different to what an examiner's used to, you're going to bag your full 80 out of 80 because it's about your richness, and that's key. Can you underline the word richness? It's your richness of Irish, not the complicated sentences. It doesn't say in the exam, oh, give really good marks to anyone who writes long, boring, complicated sentences. What they're wanting is vocab, different material. 80 marks. Now, the one thing I'm going to tell you to do is, will you do this for me? Your subject and your Irish are technically linked together. Think about it this way. If I ask you to write an essay on the environment, you can only write about an essay on the environment if you use vocab that's relating to the environment. Similarly, if I give you an essay on education, you can only get your top marks in the subject if you stick to education by using educational vocab. So the subject and the Irish, they're actually quite linked, and you'll find that if you get like a H3 in your subject, around 10 marks here, right, you'll probably be getting a H3 in Irish. So these are linked in together. Now, the next part then, right, is what happens if I don't write an essay that aligns with the given title. This is really, really important. A penalty is going to be put into place. So, for example, if they ask you to write about women in sport and you only write about one woman in sport, a penalty is going to be imposed. If we ask you to write about social problems and you just write about one social problem, a penalty is going to be put into place. And this happens quite often, that you're not looking at the title. Let's have a look at the penalty system here. For your style, they're still going to give you your 5 marks. They're going to take away nothing. So you're still going to keep your 5%. They're being quite generous here, right? But look at your subject. If you don't stick to the title, the subject for 15, they're going to take away 5 marks, which means you will be now marked out of 10. Now marked out of 10, which means you can get 9, 8, 7, 6, and all the way down. And even if you look at your Irish, this is where the most amount of damage is done. If you're not paying attention to the title of what they're asking you, women in sport, problems in society, issues with young people, if you're not paying attention to the title, your 80 marks for Irish, they're going to take away 26, which means you're left with 54. Which means they're going to start marking at 69 marks. You've lost your H1. You've lost your H2. You've lost your H3. You're now into the H4 bracket at 69, which means you can come away with 60 or 59 or 58, and you've dropped down to your H4s, to your H5s. So the penalties are quite strict, all right? They're giving you a wide range. We're going to look at this in a second. They're giving you the broadest range of topics to write about. They're literally throwing out loads of different types of topics itself, right? But the thing is, they will not let you away with not paying attention to the title. That's where we find our H1s and our H2s. So how do you avoid penalties? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to use my T.S.P.P method. The best thing to stop you getting penalties imposed, stop you dropping down to H3 and H4. The T.S.P.P system. Let's have a quick look at this. So if I get you going to page 25 there, right? What you're going to do for me is you have 1 hour and 50 minutes to write me an essay. So I'm going to pop that there. That is loads and loads and loads of time. Why are they giving you so much time on paper 1 to write an essay? Because they know it's worth 16.6%. They need you to get that 16.6%. They want you to get the full 16.6% in this. That's why they're giving you 1 hour and 50 minutes. They want you to plan. They want you to take your time, look at the essay titles, pick the best essay title, spend time planning the essay and writing the essay. That's why they're giving you 1 hour and 50 minutes. Think about it. They could give you 45 minutes if they wanted, right? But they're giving you 1 hour and 50 minutes because they know how much this is worth to you, and they want you, they need you to spend as much time on this. So here's what we're going to do. In June, you're going to go to your booklet, to the very, very back, and you're going to write down the letters T, S, P, and P. This is going to help you plan your essay, and it's also going to help you not get penalties put into place. So we're going to look at the first letter T. The first letter T stands for the topic, right? So I want us to write down what is the topic. So your topic might be Gaelic, Gaeltacht, or Culture na HÉireann, the culture of Ireland. Your topic might be Ahrú Éardáide, which is climate change. Now, I think we should look out for this word here this year. See the word Cohill? That's another sneaky word for environment in Irish. Everybody knows the word Timpalacht, right? Imhale is another sneaky word for environment as well. So let's note that. And the sneakiest of all words for environment here, right? What we're going to go for is this word here. Taobh Downda. Can you all write this down for me? So Taobh. Now you can see the word te in that. Te means heat. So Taobh Downda or Taobh Downda means global warming. I think we should look out for that title this year because everybody knows this word, don't they? Timpalacht. It's one of the most common words. And back in 2021, I'd said to my students, they keep using the word Timpalacht over and over and over again. And one of the words I think we should look out for is Ahru Eroja, which is the word that they used that year to come up with climate change. So look out for Ahru Eroja and look out for Taobh Downda, two other words that they can use for global warming or the environment. Now, the other topic that they can have is Dini. So Dini Oige, young people. But look at this. On Tis Og, that's a sneaky word that they could use for youth in Irish. On Tis Og. They could use Lucht na Hoige, youth. They could use Jagori, teenagers. But most students would understand the word Jagori. Let's look at the other group here, right? We have Dini Fásta. Now, we all know Dini Fásta is the word for adults or grown-ups, grown people, Dini Fásta. Another word that they could have here is Dini Éasta, elderly people, older people. So Dini Éasta. A sneaky word, a very, very sneaky word is this one here. Dini Críana, elderly people. Dini Críana, another word for elderly people or older people. Now, Shandini, everybody knows the word Shandini. I'd expect that, that's fine. But if I wanted to be sneaky, I could use the word Shinsher or Sosher. Shinsher is the word for elderly, right? So elderly people, and Sosher, the word for younger people. So you're looking for the overall topic. It is about Irish, is it about culture, is it about Gaeltacht, is it the environment, is it young people, is it old people, or it might be Polachori, politicians. Now everybody knows the word Polachori. It came up as an essay title in 2018, but I would look out for this one this year. Cianary, which is the word for leaders. Cianary na Chira, leaders of the country. Cianary an Dón, leaders of the world. Put a line underneath that word Cianary. That has not come up for us yet. I would also look out for this word here on Cinna Dana, the human race. On Cinna Dana, the human race. We have Tefik, refugees. We have Immerkik, immigrants. And we have this word here, Iabartach. Iabartach is the word for a victim. So Iabartach, a victim. And Iabartig then is going to be the word that is in the plural here with the AIGH ending towards it. So we've got kind of a victim. So I want you to find out what the overall topic is. Now this is where the vast majority of the country stop. Most students just stop here and that's it, right? The topic. I need us to go a little bit more. Now let's have a look and see what the letter S stands for. S stands for the situation, and put an NB beside this. This is where if you don't pay attention, now the penalties are going to get put into place for you. So in the situation, they're looking for whether things are getting better or whether things are getting worse. So we need to look out for words that tell us the education system's getting better or the education system's getting worse, the environment's getting better or the environment's getting worse. And this comes up quite often. This is where you lose your biggest amount of marks. So for positives, what are we looking out for? We know the word fios means an improvement. They can also use words like eg fiosu, improving, and they could also use con fios, for the better. Right, so con fios, and they used that in a title in 2018, changes for the better. They could use words like fos. Fos means a growth. Right, so fos means a growth. Dul con kin, I would note this one. Dul con kin means progress. So there is progress in the education system, there is progress in the environment. Or they could use something like this, ag dul citro ciart, going in the right direction, which is another word to say we're improving, going in the right direction. The last one that they used here came up in 2018 and it caught the entire country by surprise. I'd love to see something like this coming up this year, right? Suavneach means calm, peaceful. Things are grand. Suavneach. Things are great. Things are grand. And I'd watch out for a word like suchar, which means calm and easy. I would look out for that this year. Now, how will they give you a negative-based essay? We need to watch out for these. So a negative-based essay will contain words like donna, meaning bad, ulk, meaning bad. They could use words like igdulanulcus, getting worse. And again, if you're not paying attention to the title, that it's getting worse, you've just dropped down to your H4. The penalty gets put into place. They could use words like chun donish, for the worse, chunolkish, for the worse, again, or for the worst. I can't remember them in English. Chundonish and chunolkish means it getting bad, getting worse. This is a sneaky one here. I think we should look out for this year. All right. Ma. Ma is the word for decline. For example, there is a decline in the education system. There is a decline in the environment. There is a decline in the healthcare system. Ma also suspiciously looks like a county in Ireland. I'm not going to say what it is, but you can see what it means. Ag dulce tro michart. Now that's the complete opposite. Ag dulce tro michart means going in the wrong direction. For example, education is going in the wrong direction, healthcare is going in the wrong direction, use of technology is going in the wrong direction, all indicators that you need to write a negative-based essay. Now, if we know suavneach means calm, peaceful, well, we need to look out for mi huavneach, means uncalm, unpeaceful, untranquil. Mi huavneach. Things are uneasy, which I think, if I was to be perfectly honest, is something we need to watch out for in 2025. The world is mihuavneach. The world is uncalm. The world is unpeaceful. That's something we need to watch out for this year. And another one I think as well that they haven't used in a while is this word here, came sheer. Put an NB beside this. Came sheer means a step back, a backward step or a regression. For example, ta came sheer sedon. There's a step back in the world. We're going backwards. Things aren't getting great. Things aren't getting better. We're going back and back. We're going came sheer, sheer is sheer. We need to pay attention for this. Again, if you're not paying attention to this situation, whether things are getting better in your essay or things are getting worse in your essay, you are automatically down to a H4. Now, I've got a question here from Leisha. Leisha, how are you getting on? How are things? So we're going to get to Leisha's question now, right? So we've looked at, we need to put in this T.S.P.P to make sure we're not getting penalised by this. T stands for topic. What's the overall topic, the generic topic? Everybody does this in the country. They see environment and they write about the environment. They see technology and they write about technology. And that's where you're all stopping. We need to now look for a situation. S is for situation. Now, the first letter P stands for plural. Very, very, very sneaky. Put an NB beside this. This is where we find our H1s and our H2s and our H3s separated from everybody else. Can you spot plurals? So Leisha asked me a question. For plural questions, Fibina, how many problems should we speak about? I would always go for this, 2. So if they give you a plural question, I think 2 is fine. You can go to 3 if you want. You can go up to 3. So if we get a plural question, I think 2 is good and 3 is good. After that, then I'd kind of stop it because I don't want an essay that just looks like paragraphs that are all put down. So let's have a look at this. Sneaky ways that they can ask us about plurals. So we're looking out for words like fibe, but fibina, problems, which will require you to write at least 2. Pubil, this is sneaky, and this came up in 2018, so we're going to put a little blue on this one as well, right? So I'm just going to keep this all in one. So we're looking out for fibina, for problems, which means we'll need to put in 2, at least. Now, see this word here, pubil, without the I, that's a community, but pubil is communities. 2018, they caught loads of students out with this. Pubil. So with that I, we're talking about communities, which means we have to mention at least 2 countries, all right? So 2 countries. Mana is women, which again came up in 2019 where they said women in sports, and students just wrote about Katie Taylor, and that was it. An essay on Katie Taylor at the time, and everybody got H4s in their essays. We need to look out for women. We'll need at least 2 women. A dinne og, a young person, and Dini Oige, young people, which we want to talk about teenagers. So Dini Oige. We'd like words like myself, my friends, my school friends. That's the type of wording that we want. We want to talk about different groups of you and your friends, you and your school friends. So there are two different groups that we can talk about. Scannel was another one that caught us out in 2018. See that with the letter I? Scandals. So scannel, one scandal. But I think they'd say scanil for scandals, which means we'll have to give them at least two scandals in the word. So homelessness and healthcare, or crime and homelessness. They'd be two scandals. And another one as well. Ahru means a change, and ahraha means changes. So changes for the better, changes for the worst. That will require you to write two changes. So if I give you an essay title, Changes for the Worse in Ireland, homelessness and healthcare, homelessness and crime. So we need to look out for the plurals, and if we're not looking out for plurals, penalties put in place. Keane, how are you getting on? How are things? So Keane has a question coming in for us there. Could I ask you an essay specifically on the Leaving Cert reform? I don't think so. That's too niche. And Keane, I'm going to tell you why. I hadn't a clue what was going on for a while. They were bringing in reforms, they weren't coming in, they were planning on this, they weren't coming in. Things were supposed to come in 2023, they never came in. They were putting them in 2024, they never came in. Now apparently they're coming in 2025. It's all over the place. I could not see an essay on the Leaving Cert reform because an awful lot of teachers themselves don't actually know what's happening. I think an awful lot of them in the department don't know what's going to happen at the moment. It's a little bit all up in the air. It's crazy at the moment. So I couldn't see an essay being that specific, Leaving Cert reforms themselves. All right, let's go and have a look at the last P. So we've got the T.S.P.P. We know T stands for topic, S stands for situation, P is the sneaky one for plurals. But let's look at the last letter P. This is the position. Where is it taking place? So is the topic taking place in Ireland? Homelessness in Ireland, healthcare in Ireland, the environment in Ireland? Or is it taking place in an international context? The environment around the world, homelessness around the world, crime and violence around the world. We need to look out for this. So we're going to call this the letter P for position. So if they're going to use words for abroad and they want you to put your essay in a global context, here's the words that they would have to use. Number one, Harliar, abroad, and it's the exact same as Harsarlia. Two of these are identical. Harliar, Harsalia, abroad. They would use words like Timple London, around the world, but if I was being honest, most students in the country would know that already. For Timple London, around the world. Fud London is the exact same thing. For example, climate change around the world is getting worse. So two similar words that they could use. They'd use words then like international, which means international. They could use something quite sneaky like Tíortha an Dón. I'd look out for that in 2025 for this year. I'm going to put a little 2025 there for you. Right? Countries of the world are struggling with climate change. Countries of the world are struggling with crime. Countries of the world are struggling with homelessness. Muintir na Hordba, the people of Europe. So Muintir na Hordba, the people of Europe. Again, that would tell you have to write about it. But all you have to do here is write about Berlin. Very simple. So if you get like an international context, then we're used to doing essays like in Cork there's problems, in Dublin there's problems, in Limerick there's problems, in Galway there's problems, in Wexford there's never any problems, things are great. But if you need to make this like an international context, right? Very, very simply done. Tell me there's homelessness in Berlin, and it looks identical to the English spelling, and so does London. Tell me there's crime in London, there's homelessness in London. That's how you make your essay go international. And one thing as well I think we need to look out for, it came up a couple of years ago and it caused all sorts of problems. On Cinna Dana, the human race, this would require you to write about an international context, which means we would have to have countries like America, right? Berlin and London. And once you just put those into your essays, that's you making your essay global, essentially. But look out for that on Cinna Dana. That would require you to write about the world in general. Now, if it's a national-based question here, right, what we're looking out for, words like náisiúnta, meaning national, it's a national problem. Éire, we're looking out for words like Ireland and Ireland. Tuaisceart na hÉireann, the north of Ireland, not Northern Ireland because it doesn't exist. So Tuaisceart na hÉireann, the north of Ireland. Deisceart, the south of Ireland. We would look out for words like an tír seo, this country, or what I think is quite simple and sneaky, muintir na tíre, the people of the country. So that would require you to write about an essay that's based in Ireland. They could use words like an Tilán seo, this island. Or they could be sneaky and they could say muintir an Ilion. I think this is something we need to look out for this year. The people of the island. For example, the environment is impacting the people of the island. This would require us to write about Ireland in general itself. Now, trust me, why are they giving you an hour and 15 minutes? They're giving you an hour and 15 minutes because they want you to back that 16.6%. They're actually on your side. They could have given us an hour, they could have given us 50 minutes to write an essay, but they said, you know what, it's 16.6%. Let's give them almost 2 hours. But they're giving you that so you plan your essay. Look at your titles, find your essay titles, plan your essay, and then write it. They are giving you every opportunity to get that 16.6%. Now, from an examiner's point of view, right, here's the thing. It's never the Irish that's going to let you down. Never the Irish. You learn the Irish so well. We know it. You learn your phrases, your vocab, your spelling. You learn your essays inside out, back to front, up and down. Your essays are deadly. Your essays are amazing. The work that you put in every year for the essays is incredible. The thing is, you're not picking the correct essay title to fit the material. That's the problem. That's the issue. That's the biggest concern I would have. And someone messaged me in during the week and said, Michal, what is the biggest problem? Where's the biggest downfall for Leaving Cert students when it comes to the essay? Because I want to avoid it. And I said to them, you're just not picking the correct essay. So now you can pick the correct essay based on the T.S.P.P. This is what we're going to do. We're going to break down the essay titles here in a second, right? We have 5. We're going to look for that T.S.P.P. We're going to look for their angles that they're giving us. I have a quick question coming in here. Sarah, hi Michal. I know you probably get this question a lot, but if you were to prioritise 3 main essays, what would they be? Sarah, I'm going to talk to you about those in a second, right? I would definitely go for environment, social problems, and possibly Irish. They would be my top 3, right? Now, 5 is kind of good, but if you've got them 3, that's fine. I would go for environment, I would go for social problems like homelessness, healthcare and crime, just 3 paragraphs on each, and I'd go for Irish. They'd be kind of my top 3. We'll talk about those in a couple of minutes, Sarah, right? I want to show you how to manipulate the material first. Isaac, how are you getting on? How are things? For the international essays, Michal, can you still have paragraphs on Irish case studies like charities fighting homelessness or an article I saw in the Irish Independent regarding the housing crisis? Isaac, if it's an international based essay, they would require you to tell me that this happened outside of Ireland. So what happened a couple of years ago is they allowed us a paragraph on Ireland saying that Ireland was an international country, but they didn't want the entire essay to be Irish focused. So they allowed us away with a paragraph on Ireland. So let's say, Isaac, right, and you're right with this, that you read about homelessness and charities fighting homelessness in Ireland. Perfect as a paragraph, but they would need the other paragraphs then to be outside of Ireland. So you'll get away with 1 paragraph because Ireland can be like an international country, but they will not allow you to have an essay that's leaning more so to Irish, like something in Ireland, something in Ireland, something in Berlin, something in Ireland, something in Ireland, something in Ireland, something in Berlin. They won't let you away with that. That's where you'll do an awful lot of damage. But you will get a paragraph in if you want to say, look, it's an international country, but here's a paragraph about Ireland. But Isaac, the thing is, right, in the notes that I've given you, if you take out the charities, right, if you take out Imolia Clia in Dublin and you just throw in the word Berlin, perfect. Job done. If you take out the word Berlin and just pop in the word London, you've made your paragraph about London. So it's really, really easy to take out the Irish cities and pop in those 3 things, pop in those as well. Right, folks, keep your questions coming in, right? Let's have a look at the essay titles here now. Let's go for 2023, and I want to put this T.S.P.P. into place. So we have Costas Maragdala, which is the living cost, the cost of living in Ireland. That's the first one, right? Costas Maragdala. Number 2, Fáib na Nugaí, the problem of drugs Salatanion in today's day. 3, Dini Kailula, famous people in today's day. Famous people. Letter D, on Agord. Now, can you just highlight that for me? That caught an awful lot of people out in 2023. I don't think they'll repeat it. I think they could put it in as a title for An Trial and Goffa. So if you're doing on Trial and Gotha, I want us to make a note of this word on Agor. On Agor means the injustice. So on my waves, I think, well, they threw it up in 2023. Students should know it, so let's use it as on Trial, yet let's use it in a title for Gotha. So on Agor, the injustice in today's day. Now, the next one is, na ruddy a hurdan isteach launch an duine. The things which affect the health of people, the things which affect the health of people. We're going to break down these essay titles. Now, so far they've given us letter A is about the living costs. So we can talk about homelessness and we can talk about crime. We can say like, living costs increasing, people are taking to crime, living costs are increasing, there's more people living on the streets. So on Chorus Marktala, even though it says the living system, the living costs, that can be about homelessness and crime. Five and Rogi, about drugs, but again, you could link into homelessness and you could link into crime with this one as well. Dini Kailula, famous people. Listen to this. Famous people could be ministers. The Minister for Housing and then write about homelessness. The Minister for Justice and then write about crime. So just because it's Dini Kailula, you don't have to go straight for the Kardashians straight away. Even if you're doing something on sport, you could write something on Katie Taylor and Rashida Adeleke. They would be Dini Kailula. If you've done a technology-based essay, you could tell me about a TikTok star that you follow. So this is the thing that I said to you at the start of tonight's class. I want us to take a break for a second, right? I want us to just calm down and look at the essay titles. Our essay material can fit loads and loads of titles. They're giving us such a wide span and such a wide scope of material. But the trouble is, most students expect us to write an essay title that'll fit an essay title. The environment has to go to the environment. Technology has to go to technology. You might open up this and not see technology, not see homelessness, not see crime and start to panic. But when you think about the actual title itself, you can get all the stuff that you know into an awful lot of these titles. So if you look at famous people could be the Minister for Housing and write about homelessness, and the Minister for Crime, and or Minister for Justice, and you can write about crime, or you can write about your technology. Down here, D, the injustice in today's day. That can be anything: homelessness, healthcare, crime. If you want to say the environment is a great injustice today, we're not paying an awful lot of attention to it, that's perfect as well. They are giving you such a scope of essays. But the thing is, you need to calm down and have a look at the essay titles and realise that their job on the day is to actually give you the widest range ever to let you fit the material, because believe it or not, we don't want you learning off 8, 9, 10 essays. There's no need to. Roughly about 4 or 5 core essays is enough to get all of this in. And even if you have this one here, the things which affect the health of a person. Now, letter E, fair enough, that can be about the healthcare system, right? You could write me about the healthcare system. But you could also say technology affects health. You could also say there's an obesity crisis with technology. You could say things that affect health, it could be maybe the education system and the pressures of the point race. This essay title here was amazing because they said the things which affect health, be it physical health or mental health. And this is what I want us to come away with in today's class. I want you to come away from today's class thinking, fair enough, yeah, I've done 3 or 4 or 5 essays, perfect. I can fit them into anything. And that's what I want to show you in today, is how to manipulate the titles. But we cannot expect to have a title to fit an essay, a title to fit an essay, a title to fit an essay, and a title to fit an essay. Environment, write about the environment. Homelessness, write about homelessness. Healthcare, write about healthcare. Crime, write about crime. It's not going to happen like that. Once you realise that what you've learned can be used inside these titles, that's where you'll get your H1s. That's where you'll surprise yourself. Now, I'm going to keep your questions coming in, folks, right? Keep firing your questions in. I'm going to go for this T.S.P.P method here now for a second, right? So let's have a look at this. What is the topic for letter A? So in letter A, we had the living costs of Ireland. So what is our topic? What I would do for my letter T is I would put in living costs, which can mean homelessness and crime and even healthcare, if you want to say that's pushing up. The situation, is it getting better? Now, they just said the living costs in Ireland. So there was actually no situation which was lovely. They're not telling you it's getting better or it's getting worse. They didn't give us any angles, which was fantastic. They said on Custis Maragdala, the living cost in Ireland. But again, it is a kind of a sneaky plural question, because they kind of want us to talk about everything. They want us to talk about rent and homelessness. They want us to talk about the influence of crime. So there is kind of a little bit of a plural angle in it. Was there a position? Yes. They told us it had to be based in Ireland. If you pay attention to the essay titles, you are going to get your full marks. Remember, it's not the Irish that will let you down. Your Irish is amazing. You learn it so well. We're not looking at the title, we're not looking at the angle. Let's look at the next one, right? Now, essay title letter B. I'm going to go switch back and forth here for a second, right? Essay title B was Five na Rugi Salah Atá Nuam, the problem of drugs in today's day. So, what was the topic about? The topic was about drugs. Now, was there a situation? No, they didn't give us a situation. They didn't say whether it was getting worse or whether it was getting better. Are there any plurals? They said drugs, but drugs is drugs. So I don't really consider that to be a topic. It doesn't mean that you have to mention cocaine and heroin. Drugs is drugs. It's a plural anyway, so we're not really too bothered about that. Did they give us a position? Is it in Ireland? Is it abroad? No. So we don't need to pay any attention to where we need to base the essay. So that's a very handy essay, just drugs. That's all they wanted from that. C. Now, when it came to letter C then, what we had here was, one second, Dini Kailula in Sail Ata and Yon, which is the famous people in today's day. So let's have a look at this. Famous people in today's day. Let's look and see what the angles are for this one. So the angles were famous people. So we're talking about fame, which can be social media, technology, but it could also be about the Minister for Health, the Minister for Housing, the Minister for Crime. It can be pretty much anything that you want. Now, the situation, was it getting better or was it getting worse in today's day? Well, they didn't really give us anything there. So there was no getting better or getting worse. It was just famous people. Is there a plural? There is, which means we would have to mention at least two people in order to get the full marks. Now, did they give us a position in it? No, they just said famous people in today's day. There was no position. It didn't have to be based in America. It didn't have to be based in Ireland. Quite a simple thing. Just mention two famous people and it could be any choice. Letter D then they gave us was the injustice in today's life. So it's about injustice, but injustice can be anything. That's pretty much a blank question. The environment, homelessness, healthcare, technology, crime, whatever you want, anything that you find to be an injustice in today's day, they let you away. They literally give you a blank check. Now, the situation, is it getting better? Is it getting worse? They're not telling us whether, excuse me, whether it's getting better or whether it's getting worse. So we can just put in an X there. We're fine so far with the situations. Any plurals? Nope, no plurals. They said an injustice. One. So you could just write about the environment. You could just write about homelessness. You could just write about crime. You could just write about technology. You could write about maybe the education system is a great injustice. They gave every student in the country so many blank checks. The position, they didn't tell us where it needed to take place. Does it need to take place in Ireland or abroad? No. The Irish will never let you down. It's your title and your essay selection. That's the thing. Usually I correct an essay and I think that would have been so much better if you had to put that into essay title B. That would have been so much better if you had to put that into essay title A. Take your time and plan. The last one then they have here is na ruddy a churnasteach chlancha on dinja. Anything that affects people's health, whether it's mental health or physical health. So if it came to mental health, you could talk about anything you wanted here, right? But let's have a look at this. The things which affect the health of a person. So I'm going to put in the health here, and I'm going to put in mental health. They didn't specify. They would let you write either or. Now, the situation, we need to be careful. It says the things which affect health. There is a situation in this. We're talking about things that affect mental health, things that affect physical health. So there is a negative-based situation here. For example, technology has an effect, a negative effect. Lack of sports has a negative effect. The pressures of school has a negative effect. There is a negative effect mentioned in this one. Any plurals? There is. Which means we need to write about, because it says na rudi, the things which affect mental health, which means you need to write down two. So you could tell me technology affects the health of a person and the education system affects the health of a person. And finally, are they giving us any indication of position? Do they want you to write in Ireland or abroad? No, absolutely not. None whatsoever, which is very, very nice and simple. But the thing is, you need to be able to break down the essay titles. They allow you, they give you such a scope, right? If you look at all the stuff, they allow you away with so much. They come up with essay titles every year. They're like, right, we need to give them the biggest selection as possible to make them write something to cater for everybody. And that's the thing. There's loads of safety nets in this. They're catering for as wide a scope of people as possible. But your job on the day is to actually fit the material in. So you ask me questions, Michal, is this okay? Is this okay? Is this okay? I'm like, yeah, it's all grand, but it's how you're going to use it. Right, now let's go back and get a couple of your questions. Your questions are amazing. Keep them coming in. Chloe, you've probably already answered this, but how do you recommend studying the essays as I'm currently at a loss? Chloe, I'm going to talk about how to study the essays in a second, right? Sarah, when it asks for the cost of living, can I write my essay primarily on the housing crisis, or do I have to put specifically in a lot of into costs? Sarah, when it's asked you about the housing crisis, or it says the living costs, all you have to say is the living costs are high, full stop, therefore homeless people, and you can write your paragraph all on homeless people. That's all we need. We don't need like an Irish Times article where we talk about the living crisis, the rise of cost, the rise of cost, the rise of cost. We just need to say there's a cost of living crisis, and then we can talk about the homelessness. And the same thing again with crime, you can say, yeah, there's a cost of living crisis, and crime is now, and then you can use all your information about crime. And even if you wanted Sarah to say there's a cost of living crisis, healthcare. And you can say healthcare is crazy, and then you can put in all about the healthcare system itself. We're not looking for perfect matching titles. You're 17 and 18 years of age. We're not really supposed to know about the root causes of homelessness and be able to solve it, the root causes of the healthcare system and be able to solve it. We're just generically saying living costs have gone through the roof. What do you think? And you can say, oh, for me it's homelessness, it's crime, and it's healthcare. And that's perfect. So it doesn't have to be a Pulitzer or a Nobel Peace winning prize of material. They're giving you kind of a blank check of material itself. Sarah, I lost 6 marks on my mocks for the overgrading. I got 9 out of 15. I did the health system, and in every paragraph I had it mentioned and was writing about different aspects and the effect of the health system. Would you have any idea why I lost so much? I don't know, Sarah, because you're telling me that you had the health system mentioned in every paragraph, which is amazing, right? If I was correct on it, I'd be super happy with that. And you were writing about different aspects and the effects it has on the health system. That to me sounds really good. So to me, Sarah, it sounds like you got an essay on the healthcare system. You wrote about the healthcare system and you wrote about the effects and the impacts. I don't know why you only got 5 or 9 out of 15. I would definitely have marked that up an awful lot higher if that's how it happened. So I think, Sarah, that's kind of that's a bit weird. Drop me an email, Sarah, will you? Will you drop me an email, and I'll have a little bit of a chat with you about that as to why it possibly could have happened, and I'll talk to you a bit more about that. So drop me an email there. Brian, how are you getting on, Brian? You well? For the injustice question, could we only talk about one problem like the environment, or does it require us to talk about multiple topics? So the injustice question there that you have doesn't really give us any kind of indication as to whether you need to write 1 or 2. It just says AGOR, which is injustice, and they allowed you to pick whatever you think is an injustice. You pick the title itself. So again, Brian, you'd be grand to talk about 1. The environment is an injustice. Lucy, if you get something when you're only got a topic like drugs, does that mean you can go slightly elsewhere into crime? Yeah, 100% well spotted. So Lucy, that's the thing about planning up your essays here, right? So essay B was just about drugs and they gave us nothing else in the title, which means, Lucy, you're 100% right. You could say drugs and then drugs into crime. You could even say drugs into homelessness. So wherever you want to take the drugs and the root problem of drugs is perfect. That's why you need to break down the titles of your essay. And this is why I think the essays you have already are fine. The essays that you're studying are great. The essays are perfect. And this is what I was saying at the start. Hold off asking me, should I be doing this, this, and this? And should I be doing this, this, and this? Because it's all about how you use your material. Stuff that you're doing, folks. And this is why I want us to kind of calm down a little bit. You're doing super work, amazing work. But just look at the titles because they're on your side and they're giving you so much scope to write about whatever you want, but you need to look at the titles themselves. Maria, would it be wrong if you did more than 1 injustice? Absolutely not, no, because they're not asking you to write about just specifically 1. One is the grade, 1 is the bar. So if you want to write 1 injustice, Maria, perfect. But Maria, if you want to talk about 2, brilliant. You can drive into 2 if you want. The trouble is, if they said injustices, and they give you the plural, and Maria, we only write about one, that's where we'll do the damage, but not the other way. So if we give you like injustice and you write about two, that's perfect itself. Brian, do you recommend we do 2 essays on the day instead of looking over one essay for an hour? Brian, this is kind of going to come down to the essay titles and what you've done. I would think, right, you've an hour and 50 minutes. What I would do is I would find my top essay that allows me to fit in my material. So if, let's say, for example, I've done the environment and homelessness and crime and Irish, I would find my top essay that fits the best here, Brian, right? I would go for these. Then I might have 20 minutes. Because you have an hour and 50 minutes, you have a ridiculous amount of time. Let's say you have 20 minutes left. What I would do, instead of walking out of the exam, I would just find a lower essay, like drugs, something that's really, really simple. And I would just write a little bit. I'd write about 2 A4 pages on it, and I'd do my second essay, and I would just breeze through it. I would just find it. So Brian, I think maybe, depending on the day of the exam, what you've done and what you've prepared and the essay titles that you're comfortable with, spend a good hour and 30 minutes getting that H1, H2 material down on the sheet of paper. And you'll finish early, because an hour and 50 minutes is ridiculous. And then, Brian, after that, I think you've 20 minutes to spare. You can either go out and spend the 20 minutes in the hall on your phone, or you can do a backup question and do something that's really, really simple, really, really easy, just for 20 minutes. Just write down. That's what I would do. Now, I have a question coming in there, right? Really, really good question, by the way. Orals. I told you not to throw out your oral material. I saw you all online burning everything. Hurt me. You burned SRAP pictures online. Offensive. But I told you to hold on to your oral material. Why? We learned stuff on the healthcare system, didn't we? We learned stuff on the Irish. We learned stuff on technology for the orals. We learned stuff on schools and the pressures of point racing and wanting to go to college. We also did lovely paragraphs on, if I was the Minister for Health, I would, blah, blah, blah. If I was the Minister for this, I would. If I was a principal, I would. Use your oral material in the essays. All the stuff that you've done for the orals, school, problems in your area, rubbish, antisocial behaviour, I would fire that into my essays. You know it so well. You came back with feedback from the orals and you said, Michal, orals went great, went amazing, brilliant. Use that in your essays. No one's going to know. So what I would suggest is maybe taking a day or two closer to the exams, revise the oral notes again, revise the topical stuff in the orals, talking about your area, talking about school, the pressures of school, and throw them into your essays as well. And it bulks it out a little bit more, and you don't really have to do an awful lot. Now, I'm going to come back to a question that Sarah had. Yeah. No, it wasn't. It was Chloe. I'm going back. There's loads of questions coming in. Right. Chloe asked us, how do I prepare? How do I study for an essay? Right. I am going to show you how to study for the essay, because teachers are very good at giving you materials, which is great. It's fantastic. What we're going to do is this method I came up with. It's called the 3-2-1 method. How do you learn off chunks of material? Here's what's going to happen. You're going to open up the first paragraph. You're going to learn a paragraph. You're going to move on to the second paragraph of an essay. It's not going to be as good. The motivation is going to dip. The enthusiasm is going to go. You're then going to go on to paragraph 3. And again, the motivation is going to go, it's going to dip, and the quality of writing gets progressively worse until you come down to paragraph 5 in your essay, where you don't care anymore. You're just putting fodders and H's everywhere. How do you stop your essay being amazing in paragraph 1 and then gradually just gets worse down to the very last paragraph? This is one of the best methods I've came across for actually studying the material. So let's say your paragraph, right, has 10 lines. We have line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4, line 5, line 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, right? Chloe, so let's say that you have a 10-line paragraph in this. What we're going to do is we're going to take the biggest chunk of that paragraph, Chloe, when we have the most amount of energy, when we have the most amount of enthusiasm, right? So I would take the biggest chunk and I'd learn it off. Paragraph 1, line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4. Now you might want to go more, right? But have a look at this. When I have the most amount of enthusiasm, I'm going to take the most amount of material. Now, motivation drops, enthusiasm drops. That's natural, that's normal. So when my motivation dips, that's when I'm going to reduce the material. So I know I don't have to learn as much as I did last night. I can just learn off a little bit less. So I'm going to take then, say, for example, the next 3 lines, line 1 here, 2, and 3 of the paragraph, which is much easier to do And then when it comes to like, maybe it's Wednesday night and you're just like, "Do you know what, I just haven't the energy, I can't do it, I'm just so," then you know I only have 2 lines left in that paragraph and then my paragraph is grand. So that's what I do, is when my motivation dips, and it does dip, when my motivation drops, I drop my material, and it's much easier to face into a paragraph or lines when I know I don't have to learn a mad chunk of a paragraph. I'm just going to learn off 5 lines in that paragraph and that's it. And that's where you'll actually start to use your time more effectively. So this 3-2-1 method, right, is I take a paragraph, but I never feel like I have to face into paragraph after paragraph after paragraph after paragraph, and it feels never ending. It just feels like I'm never going to get through all this essay. I'm never going to get through the other essays. So what I do is, Chloe, I just say to myself, right, I have the most amount of energy now. It's Monday night. I'm pumped. I'm ready. I'm in the game. I'm going to take the biggest amount of material I can in that paragraph. You might come back to it a little bit later that night, or you might come back to it on Tuesday, and maybe the enthusiasm is going to drop a little bit on a Tuesday. You're a little bit more tired. Maybe you have an essay. And I know I'm not going to take a huge chunk. I'm just going to take a smaller chunk out of that paragraph. And then it comes to Wednesday. And maybe Wednesday you just hit a midweek slump and you're like, "Do you know what? I'm really not in form. I know, but sure, I only have to do 2 lines left and that's my paragraph done." It is so much easier if you kind of go with, when you're in form, go for the biggest amount. But when you're not in form, go for the smallest amount. You're still going to get material done, and you'll find you'll get it done an awful lot quicker. So Chloe, that's one of the methods that I've been talking to the students about for the past couple of weeks for learning poems and stories and essays. If you learn paragraph by paragraph by paragraph by paragraph, so I'm going to do paragraph 1 on this and paragraph 2 on a Tuesday, paragraph 3 on a Wednesday, it just feels never ending. That you have to go back to being at the top form. But if you do that 3-2-1 method and drop the material as it goes on, that's so much easier itself. Sabir, how are you doing? For an essay, do you write 4 separate problems, a paragraph for each one, or do you split 2 problems across 4 paragraphs? Sabir, it's totally up to you. It's your essay, it's your exam, whatever you feel, writing style. And here's the thing, and Paul will kill me for this. In English, you're very finicky about like topic sentence, having the information, backing it up, putting in a quote, concluding sentence, and all your paragraphs have to be quite uniform. They have to be like 10 lines, 10 lines, 10 lines, and it has to look great, and the aesthetics of a paragraph and an essay and all that in English. In Irish, we're just like, "Do you know what? Give me whatever Irish you can." So Sabir, whether you want to put down paragraph 1, paragraph 2, paragraph 3, paragraph 4, whether Sabir you want to have a paragraph that's only 4 lines and another paragraph that's 10 lines and another paragraph that's 5 lines, whatever you want. At the end of the day, we're correcting for your Irish, your quality and your richness of Irish, and how you put that down on a sheet of paper doesn't matter to us at all. We just want that lovely little bit of Irish. So we're not too worried about the structural things that you would have in English. That's for English. In Irish, we're just like, "Tell me nice things in Irish," and we give you loads of marks for it. Maria, no problem, anytime. And finally, Isaac, do I think if a question on violence came up, could I talk about structural violence and talk about social problems like homelessness and the environment? I think so, to be fair on it, Isaac. And he says this is a little bit cheeky to do, but it's not really. The thing is, you need to fit the title in with the material that you've learned. So if you're talking about violence, you can talk about the people. Isaac, you could say homelessness is the cause of violence if you wanted, and you can give me the material on this. If you want to say kind of the now, there is a bit of a stretch, I think, if you try and make homelessness come from the environment. I think that's a little bit of a stretch there, right? But I think the homelessness, the crime, I think even like issues of like, even if you brought in like mental health as well, that could be perfect. That'd be grand. But I do think the environment one might be a little bit of a stretch. I'm not sure how you'd link violence into the environment. Maybe Greta Thunberg protesting and striking, because we have that in our notes. So if you want to say that Greta Thunberg in the environment, when we have all her protests, that she got out of hand and she went wild and she just did this, that could be perfect as well. But it would be, you'd probably only get away with a paragraph. But that's the thing, Isaac, you're getting into the frame of mind now. You're getting into kind of manipulating the material itself. Right, what we're going to do is I want to go for a little bit more, right? Because I've given you a knowledge organizer here, nice little bits, fillers that you can add on. Do me a favor, do not learn all of these. All I want you to do is pick a handful, what you think is nice. Now, you all know Marhampla, for example, don't you? So I would switch that up and I would go for something like Curragos or Curramagos, which means I give you the case. Find something that's nice. Find something that's different from your classmates. Because in Ireland, you are all using one of 2 books for the Lebensart. So I know in the first couple of seconds, when I read your notes, I know what book you're using. When I see your essay, I know what book you're using. Because there's only 2 Lebensart books on the course. Students use one or the other. So here's what I want you to do. Look at your class and think, hold on, Marhampla, I know everybody in my class knows Mar Hample, so we're going to give them something different. I'm going to go for Curtin McGoss. So go through these and find a handful of things that are different. Find a handful of things that you know my class definitely don't have this. That's what will set you out. That's what will set you apart. So this here, right, you've got a load of stuff here. Do not learn it off. Do not learn it all. I want you to just go and pick a nice couple of handful of essays that you can actually pick itself, right? So session 1 for today, we're looking at marking schemes, pulling apart the essay titles, why the examiner's on your side. We're looking at how to actually write for the material. You've all done amazing work on all the essay titles. It's about how you're going to use them. Session 2 will come back now and we'll start revising some of the topics like the environment and sports and healthcare. I'm going to give you generic stuff, right, that you can use for pretty much any essay. That's coming up in session 2. I'm going to finish off session 1 here with really important information. Can I disagree with an essay? This is crucial. Can you put an NB beside it? It's on page 28. If you do one thing for me today, will you put an NB beside this and pay particular attention to it? I told you at the start of the class, it is possible to get 0% in an essay. It's possible. It'll happen to around maybe, I think when I was correcting there, I think the biggest chunk I had in a cohort out of 300 exams, 300 students, I think 9 students would have gotten a 0 in it that year that I corrected because they weren't paying attention to the title. So I'm going to show you, can you disagree with an essay? Because I hear my teacher tells me I can disagree with any title. You can't. There's a rule. So let me show you this, right? When it comes to this, we need to look at the type of statement. So I'm going to put number 1 beside this. These are the most frequent formats that come up. They're just a statement, right? Like on Chorus Sláinte, the healthcare system. There's nothing else around it. On Chimpalacht, the environment. There's nothing else around it. So there's no angles. So in that, you can write about anything you want once it's about the healthcare system. There's no angles, there's nothing. Perfect. They're the most common ones that we tend to get on the Leaving Cert paper, right? So we call this a statement, and you can explore anything that you want in this. The other thing we have to be careful about though is verbs. Now, if my essay title has a verb, like this one here, is Suhi Chotran I Suhi na Herden, which means Ireland is a fair society in the year. That means I can agree or I can disagree. So they've given you something like Ireland is a fair society, and you can say, yeah, you're right, Ireland is a fair society, blah, 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 blah. Or you can say, do you know what? Nah, Ireland is not a fair society. Another easier example would be, say, if I gave you something like Tá, Ceol, Táhachtach. Music is important, right? There's my verb, tá. So you can say, yeah, music is important, definitely. Or you can say, do you know what? Nah, music is not important because. So if there's a verb like is or tá, then you can agree or disagree with those. So far so good. The first one has nothing in it. It's just like a statement: homelessness, healthcare, housing crisis, injustice. You can write about whatever you want. When there's a verb like tá, been, vi, is, then you can agree or disagree with it, right? You can say, yeah, it is important because, or no, it's not important because. But we need to look out for the next one. Go over onto page 29. If it doesn't contain a verb, right? If it doesn't contain a verb, so I'm going to highlight that for you, but it does mention a certain aspect, right? You have to stick to that. So I'm going to give you an example that came up, very, very famous in 2018. This was the one that caught a huge amount of students out on the year. On Tunacher, the influence, the impact, right? So on Tunacher, the impact, atá ag ahrú airdeaide by climate change, phobal on down on communities around the world. Now, you know from using the T.S.P.P method that I showed you that that's not just about the climate change. It's about climate change on communities, which means you have to mention 2 countries, and it's around the world, which means we need to go international. So this is why your T.S.P.P that I showed you is really important, right? But the thing is, you cannot disagree with that because they're giving you an aspect. They're saying the impact of climate change, the influence of climate change. There's no verb at the start of that, which means it's not up for discussion. So you have to write about the impact that climate change has on communities. You cannot turn around to me and say, there's no impact, things are grand. So there has to be a negative impact with this. So what we're going to look out for is three things. When it comes to the essays, right? Can you disagree with an essay? In theory, yes, but we need to be careful. If they give you a generic statement, like the healthcare system or the environment, perfect. You can explore all aspects. You can write whatever you want. If they give you a verb, like is or ta, then you can agree or disagree, right? But if they do not give you a verb, but they give you a certain aspect of this, like the impact of the climate change, the influence of climate change, you have to write about a negative impact. If you turn around to me and say, you know what, everything's grand, things are great, well then you're going to get 0 in your essay. So 0 is a possibility itself. Let me give you another example, right? They mentioned a couple of years ago, Ahratha hun fiosh e sohi na herden, right? They gave us this essay title a couple of years ago. Ahratha kun fiosh, which means changes for the better in Irish society. There's 3 angles here. Number 1, Ahratha, they wanted changes, which means we needed 2. But they wanted chun fiosh, for the better, for the improvement. And then the second thing is in Sohina Herden, in Irish society. So we have a plural, we have a situation, and we have a position in this. We don't have a topic. You can pick whatever topic you want. Homelessness, healthcare, crime. You can pick technology, school, education. You can pick the environment. They give you lovely open-ended sentences, lovely open-ended titles, but there are angles in this. We needed a plural question. We needed for the better, and it has to take place in Ireland. But the thing is, you cannot disagree with this. You have to write about things for the better. So things are improving. So if you're going to write about homelessness, you have to talk about how homelessness was bad, but it's now getting better. Healthcare system was bad, but now it's getting better. Or maybe the environment was bad, but now it's getting better. You have to stick with their aspect. You cannot disagree with these here. If they tell you it's getting better, it's getting worse, you have to stick with that. You can't disagree with it. Now, another thing as well, when it comes to this thing about advantages and disadvantages, which is quite a regular occurrence on the papers, we have advantages and the disadvantages. So we have to write about both aspects, right? But they do not have to be of equal length. Can you underline that for yourselves? So they don't have to be of equal length at all. You could have a page on the advantages and you could have 2 pages on the disadvantages. That's perfect. You could have 3/4 of a page on the advantages and you could have 5 pages on the disadvantages. That's perfect. That's grand. So we need to have both aspects, but they don't have to be equal length. 2 pages on this, 2 pages on that. We're not that fussy. The other thing is I want you to look out for, and this is really important, the word agus. When they use the word agus, it's a double title, which means there are marks going for what's in front of the agus and there's marks going for what's after the agus. So I'm going to pop the number 1 above the word before agus, and I'm going to pop the number 2 on the word after the agus to remind myself that it's a 2-part essay, that I have to write about the advantages and the disadvantages itself. Now this is called a filter, right? We label these filters on the Leaving Cert course. They stop students just running away, writing off an essay off by heart. So we're putting in 2 sneaky titles in this. And a very common one is Irish and the Gaeltacht in 2018. That came up, right? So you'd have to write about Irish and you'd have to write about Gaeltacht. Do they have to be of equal length? No. So you could write 2 A4 pages on this and you could write 1 A4 page on that, and that's perfect. Excuse me. Now, I have a quick question coming in here before I give you a little bit of a break, right? So we're getting the groundwork done in session 1. We're getting all the rules, regulations, because what you have learned is perfect. It's all about how you're going to use it. That's the thing. So let's have a look at this. Emily, is 2 pages okay for an essay? Ideally, how long should an essay be? And this is what I was coming to this way. I was wanting to talk to you, right? So it says that we need 500 to 600 words, which they don't actually count the words in the conference. They go by page numbers. So we need at least 2 A4 pages. Now, Emily, if you drop below 2 A4 pages, a penalty gets put into place. So at the very, 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 very basics of an essay, you need to write 2 A4 pages. That's once you're done that, you're cleared, you're good to go. Now, those of you who are going for H1s and H2s, I would go for 3 A4 pages. I think 3 A4 pages is good. I think 3.5 A4 pages is really, really good. And 4 A4 pages, it's grand. It's a little bit excessive, if I was to be honest. I think 3 A4 is my good part, and I think 3.5, that's grand as well. I think 4, you have to call it at 4. You can't do any more than 4. Definitely don't do any more. Usually in somewhere I'll get like 5, 6, 7 pages. And here's the thing. If you cannot get a H1 in 3 A4 pages, I don't know what you're going to write in page 5, 6, and 7 to get your H1. I don't know what's going to be different on those pages. So for me, 3 A4 pages is kind of the good spot. That's what I want to go for. 3.5 is great. 4, you're on the very, very upper end of it. And after 4 is completely useless itself. Now, Tom has a very, very good question coming in here as well, right? And it links back into Emily's question. Tom says, do I mean smaller exam booklets? Yes. So what they did is when things went online, they were happy for just the 2 A4 booklets in an exam, right? But here's what I want you to do. And Emily, here's what I would love us all to do. Forget about the exam booklets for a second because they're smaller. I would go for 2 A4 pages. When I talk about 2 A4 pages and 3 A4 pages, I'm talking about a normal A4 copy that you have in your school, a normal A4 booklet that you have, a spiral booklet. I would love if you could get that 2 A4 pages in a spiral booklet, Emily, because that will transcribe to 3 A4 pages in an exam booklet, which would be great, which means then you're actually coming up out of that H3 bracket into the H2 bracket. And similarly, if you're going for them top marks in Irish, I would go for 3 A4 pages of like a normal stationary ring binder of a normal spiral book, because that 3-4 A4 pages will transcribe into about maybe 4 or 5 exam booklet pages. So Tom, this is the thing. Now, that's where I'd go with this. And that's why I'm saying like 4 A4 pages is ridiculous, because the 4 A4 pages will transcribe into maybe 6 or 7 exam booklet pages, which is too much. So that would be, go for your ring binder pages. Right, quick question coming in then from, now you keep your questions in, we're going to take a little bit of a break, right, but you keep your questions coming in for a second here, and in session number 2 we're going to go through the wording of the titles again, what to look out for 2025, and I want to talk about the environment and nice, easily adaptable paragraphs that you can use for any essay. Rachel, so if I have big handwriting, should I aim for 5 pages? Rachel, I don't think your handwriting's too big. I think your handwriting, I think you're lovely handwriting, Rachel. But yeah, if you've got like mad handwriting that's quite big, then you might want to go a little bit more than that. Then you might want to go a little bit more than the 2 A4 pages, because yeah, I think if you've got like, if you love heart your eyes and all that sort of stuff, and you've got wild writing like that's quite big, then maybe go for a little bit more on it. But Rachel, I think your handwriting's grand. I think it's nice. I think it's lovely handwriting. Right, I'll tell you what, folks, go for a quick break, get a cup of tea, get a cup of coffee, take 10 minutes and come back to me then, and we're going to go through the wording of the titles for 2025 that I want us to look out for, and I want to start taking a look at nice paragraphs that we can use for all of your essays, whether you've done homelessness, healthcare, sport, the environment. We're going to look at nice generic paragraphs that can add a little bit of fluff to our essays. So pop your questions in, go and get a cup of tea and come back to me then in 10 minutes. I heard you. Go to me and Mogif.